July 10, 2026. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office publishes its fourth batch of declassified case files under the Pursue Transparency Framework, the public unclassified repository for submissions and UAP encounters. 4 cases stand out, not because they answer questions, but because of how precisely they refuse to. A balloon that isn't a balloon. A 6-pointed object over contested waters. A rectangle moving at speeds that made a 28-year veteran aviator question what he knew about flight. And a nuclear weapons facility breached by something that, 11 years later, the U.S. government still cannot explain. These are the cases AARO has labeled unresolved. That word carries more weight than most people realize. To understand what unresolved means, you need to understand what it doesn't mean. Under AARO's evidentiary framework, established in the fiscal year 2024 NDAA and refined through Director John Kozlowski's tenure, a case can be resolved 2 ways. Positively identified, meaning a mundane explanation is confirmed with high confidence, or closed due to insufficient data. Unresolved is a 3rd category. It means the data exists, the analysis was conducted, and no conventional explanation adequately fits. AARO has been careful to note that unresolved does not mean alien, but it also means not explainable. Across 4 Pursue releases, fewer than 8% of published cases carry this designation. Release 4 adds 4 more to that list. Case Dow UAP D091. Recorded in 2020 by a Department of Defense infrared sensor platform, the specific system remains classified. The object is described in the release summary as balloon-like in morphology, but exhibiting thermal characteristics inconsistent with any known balloon material, weather or otherwise. It maintained a fixed position relative to ground, despite recorded crosswinds exceeding 30 knots. Balloons drift. This didn't. AARO's technical notes acknowledge the object's apparent station-keeping ability, but flag the possibility of sensor parallax or tracking artifact. Here's the problem with that explanation. The sensor suite in question uses multi-axis stabilization, designed specifically to eliminate parallax error. If the sensor worked as designed, the object was genuinely stationary against wind. If the sensor malfunctioned, that raises its own uncomfortable question. Why is a multi-billion-dollar defense platform producing unreliable data? The second case involves a geometrically distinct object observed over the Yellow Sea, date partially redacted, but contextual references place it between 2018 and 2022. Multiple sensor modalities recorded a 6-pointed symmetrical object at altitude. The release describes it as highly reflective, angular, and without observable propulsion surfaces. The Yellow Sea is one of the most surveilled bodies of water on Earth. Chinese, South Korean, Japanese, and American military assets monitor it continuously.
The object appeared on radar, was corroborated by electro-optical sensors, and did not correlate with any known aircraft or satellite. The geopolitical dimension cannot be ignored. If this were a Chinese or North Korean platform, its detection by U.S. systems would more likely result in a classified intelligence assessment, not an unresolved UAP file. Its presence in Pursue suggests the intelligence community does not attribute it to a known adversary. The 3rd case, 2019. A naval aviator with 28 years of operational experience, name redacted, reported a high-speed rectangular object during a routine training flight. The description is striking in its restraint. The aviator's debrief, partially quoted in the release, states the object was sharp-edged, matte-surfaced, and moving in a direction perpendicular to prevailing winds, at a velocity I could not reconcile with any known platform. No engine exhaust, no contrail, no transponder. Crucially, the aviator's onboard systems registered the object briefly before it departed the sensor field. This isn't an untrained observer. 28 years means this pilot flew through the transitions from Legacy Hornets to Super Hornets, likely accumulated thousands of hours identifying aerial objects in contested environments. When someone with that experience says they cannot reconcile what they saw, the data deserves serious scrutiny. The 4th case is the most consequential. In 2015, an unauthorized aerial object penetrated the restricted airspace above the Pantex plant near Amarillo, Texas. Pantex is where the United States assembles and disassembles its nuclear warheads. It is among the most secured facilities on the planet. The Pursue release confirms that security personnel observed the object visually and on radar, that intercept protocols were initiated, and that the object departed the area before identification could be established. 11 years, that's how long this incident remained classified. The pattern of UAP activity around nuclear assets has been documented since the 1940s. Robert Salas' testimony about Malmstrom Air Force Base, the 2023 AARO historical review referencing nuclear site incursions. But each time a new case surfaces, the same question returns. Why does the public learn about breaches at nuclear weapons facilities only years or decades later? A pattern runs through all 4 cases. The United States operates the most sophisticated sensor architecture in human history. These systems are designed to detect, track, and identify every object in their domain, from hypersonic missiles to weather balloons. Yet when confronted with these objects, the sensors produce data that is simultaneously compelling and incomplete. This is the sensor paradox at the heart of the UAP problem. The data is good enough to confirm something was there, but not good enough or not releasable enough to confirm what it was. Critics argue this points to sensor limitations or artifacts.
But AARO's unresolved designation undercuts that argument. If the agency believed sensor error explained these cases, they would be resolved, not unresolved. Something in the data resists conventional explanation. The rolling structure of Pursue itself tells a story. 4 releases over roughly 18 months, each containing a curated subset of cases. AARO's database reportedly holds thousands of reports. Pursue has published a fraction. The selection criteria remain opaque. What determines which cases are released and when? If the Pantex intrusion was deemed safe to declassify in 2026, what nuclear site incidents remain locked behind classification walls? Director Kozlowski has stated that Pursue will continue on a rolling basis, and that cases are reviewed for sources and method sensitivities before release. That's a reasonable national security position, but it also means the public sees only what the system decides the public is ready to see. The 4 cases in Release 4 aren't answers. They are the government's way of acknowledging that some questions remain open, while keeping the deepest files sealed. Whether that represents transparency or its performance depends entirely on what comes next.